Now we're joined by Marica Lewis, the woman behind a very special app which hopes to make the football experience much more positive for young players, but more importantly for their parents, aunts, uncles, guardians, who are trying to navigate the pitfalls and the twists and turns of the professional game. Welcome, Marica Lewis. Tell us a bit more about what No1 Fan Club does.
Well, it's kind of was inspired by my journey with my son who plays football, and very early on just playing at an academy, having to deal with certain things in the industry and not actually feeling particularly well equipped to make certain decisions. So it sort of fast forward to last year, it was all about, okay, how do other parents navigate this industry? It's quite complex. Whether it's you're in grassroots and you're looking to get into an academy, like there are over 4 million kids playing organised football, and a lot of kids want to, they want to succeed, they want to be professionals, but what is it about the industry that they maybe haven't seen? They don't understand the journey, and it's all about giving perspectives, hearing stories and wisdoms of others, getting resources that they may not have access to in the grassroots field, but also when you're in the academy system, it's again, having to make those decisions, being faced with certain things, whether it's, a scholarship or whether it's, dealing with agents or working with sports lawyers or brands. There's lots of things that it's an unknown for many of us, and it's quite hard to find information and support that help you make those decisions. So, No1 Fan is all about, transparency and of information so that you can make those decisions. Be in a better place.
Are we able to say what club your son plays at, or would you rather not?
No, it doesn't bother me. You can Google it or find out. No, he's at Arsenal. He's at Arsenal.
Good man. I thought there was a way of bringing Jordan in. Good man.
Do you know what? And for me, some people say, well, why? Mars is doing all right.
Yes.
He's doing well, right? And you might question, well, what do you care? Because you've had a good time, and I have. I've enjoyed the journey, but it's not been without its challenges as a parent. I've always worked full time. Getting into the academies. He's talented, so that's drawn in invites from brands and agents and so on and so forth, and it's not been straightforward in understanding how to navigate that world and make the right decisions.
Now, lots of people watching this, they might have sons of their own, so just give us a bit of detail. How old is Miles, just so that people can understand what stage he's at in his development?
So Miles now is 17. He'll be 18 in September. He plays under 21s for the team, and he's been on this journey from very young, and that was unintentional. He just loved football. It was a place to release energy, and and he's always loved it, and he continues to love it. So that's been something that I've not had to worry about. You often hear about the pushy parents and living their dreams to their kids, and I'm sure that goes on, but it's not everyone that feels like that. We just want to support our kids do something that they love in the best way that we can.
So with all of that in mind, what area of the football industry concerns you the most?
I think it's just a lack of information, really, and where we get that information from. It's, the industry is as wonderful as it is, and we all love football. Many of us love football, right? But it is, unequally weighted. Yeah. It's a business at the end of the day, and I think most, normal people like myself don't necessarily understand the business.
Yes.
And I have run a business before. I've run a retail business, and it didn't work out, and that was because I didn't understand all the the ins and outs of working. And it's no different when you get to a certain level of the industry. If you're not informed and have all the facts to hand, how can you make the right decisions?
It's such a good point, because we're recording this in Hackney in East London. There are so many young kids who either aspire to get into the professional game or come from areas like this and are in the professional game. And their parents come from humble beginnings, and very often those humble beginnings can be used against parents as leverage to parents, to get parents to maybe make decisions that aren't necessarily in their best interests. Yeah. And I think a lot of parents would benefit from varying kinds of support. Just tell us what that kind of support would look like.
So on the platform, we record different stories, podcasts called Behind the Boots, and that's on YouTube, it's on Spotify or the other channels. So it's parents from all walks of life sharing their journeys, some which have ended up with, we've had Roby's dad, for example. We know what's happened to Alex. He's had an amazing career. We've also had parents where their kids have not sort of continued in football, but also doing amazing things. And then so there's lots of stories that you can gain wisdom, inspiration, perspective. Like not everyone's journey is, in fact, every journey is different, right? And it's hearing a breadth of information, but also from different experts and professionals in the industry as well. We're not a platform that's going to teach you about, your technical skills and, can you hit the top bins, all that. It's not about that. It's about the well-being. It's about knowing where to get access to the information. So we'll have experts in sports psychology, sports nutrition, player care, because again, when you think about grassroots, you don't get that level of information in an academy. You may get it depending on where you're.
Do you feel that there are lots of parents in the football ecosystem even now who are more I don't want to say driven by money, but that is a problem for them in some respects, because the financial aspects of the game are their decision makers rather than the kind of thing that you've been discussing?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think a lot of people in this world are drawn to money, right? Money makes the world go round. So I think you can't sort of talk about football being that space where you don't think about what it can bring. And that's sold to a lot of people, right? And I think unless you have more access to information about the realities of what that is.
And I think you've just phrased it well. I have a 17-year-old boy, and if he were in the game, I would be mistaken in thinking that I have to be thinking about what's best for him financially rather than what's best for him holistically, emotionally, what the right environment is for him, what the coaches look like, what was the manager's long-term plan for him, and not just in a footballing context, but in terms of what he does maybe if something were to go wrong. And I suppose they're the kind of things you're
absolutely
thinking about.
Because at the end of the day, that this, and I hate sort of talking about the stats, but the stats speak for themselves. That we have to think about those holistic things. We have to think about, what, if you're given the opportunity, fantastic, take it with everything that you can, but you can't do it just based on what you think it's going to give you at the end of the day, because most children will not pursue a professional career in some capacity. So, try and look at those other things that are important. And if it works out, great, wonderful. But, it doesn't matter how talented your child is. If your support system does not have access to the information that help you thrive mentally as well as physically, it's not going to work. You can be in the best environment, and I think what a lot of people don't realize is that your family structure and unit is also being judged and watched. And if you have nightmare parents, the chances are your career will not pursue. If you have uninformed parents that are making the wrong decisions for a very talented child, you're not going to be able to continue in the way that you may have hoped. So it's a real 360 approach from a family unit. It's not just about the skill on the field. It really isn't.
I'm talking to Marica Lewis, the woman behind No1 Fan. It's a parent app, and it helps to guide and inform parents about the journey they're taking with their children in the professional game. Your platform, Marica, covers a wide range of topics like physical development, mental health, regulations, and the business side of football as well. How do you ensure that the advice and the content is coming from creditable experts?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. And, football is all about opinions, right? I mean, no one's right, no one's wrong. But what we do...
I'm normally right.
Well, you're not really right.
You're never right.
Yeah. But, what we do, before we have, for example, interviews, we spend time with people, either people in the industry that I know of and that have, the accreditations in whatever field that they are working in. We spend time understanding their business and actually get a feel for, do you really care about the family structure? Do you really care about players? So, but also this is not about giving advice. It's about opening up opportunity and exploring,
Yes.
and sort of getting perspectives from others. You can take it, you can leave it, you can just sit on it. It might make you think, it might make you act differently. But we're not about saying, look, this is how to be the perfect parent in football. We're saying here is an abundance of resources that are transparent and delivered to you in a heartfelt way. You know, use them to your advantage if you so wish. And there'll be people where the platform is not for them because they just want to focus on, you know, getting scouted or doing this. But it will be for people that actually think, you know, this is a lonely journey sometimes in football, and I don't have my network of people that, you know, that I can reach out to for support. So this is, you know, a genuine community where you will be able to ask questions, hear perspectives, stories and insights.
Just a couple of things I wanted to ask. You know, Darren mentioned earlier on that 9 out of 10 parents, I'd imagine, who have a young boy or girl entering football just won't know how to navigate that stage. What's the single biggest bit of misinformation, negative experience that either you had or you hear other parents have in entering the football space as someone that isn't from football? Is there one thing that parents say, that's the thing that I didn't know or don't know that I wish I had when I was getting my kid into an academy?
I mean, I wish there was one,
Okay.
but there are many. But just a couple of examples. Like, if I just sort of take myself back to when Miles was 11, that was the first point at which an agent called me. And I remember I remember it like yesterday. I was driving to get a school uniform for him, and the call came in, and it was, you know, first of all, I was like, well, you know, how do you get my number? Like, you know, data protection, like, what? You know, and it was like, you know, I'm an agent of this body, that. First of all, I don't really know football, so you could tell me any famous player at that point.
It's like Jordan doesn't know.
You're in good company.
So, you know, the names that he was spouting didn't sort of do anything for me. But what didn't feel right was, you know, the fact that he's 11. Like, what, like, but I also at that point didn't know the rules. But my gut instinct told me this isn't right. And I think one of the challenges that I hear all the time is, you know, that the business side of football comes to you much sooner than you actually know what it's all about. So you can get entangled in things that you wish, if you'd known certain things, you just would have, you know, been better informed, make better decisions. So that's the business side, which gets people, you know, into trouble. And then at the other end of the I suppose the process is, you know, when you're leaving an academy or you know, you've been let go at 16 or 18, and that funnel, you know, just gets the opportunities get smaller and smaller. It's not having the support to know what to do next. Like, parents don't know how to help their kids at 16, at 18, where someone's letting you go. Agents, you know, don't want to take you because they may feel that there's a lot of work to have to, you know, help a young person. Clubs will do their part to a point. So parents think, you know, if I just knew what were the resources available, I can help my child still enjoy football, stay in football. A lot of kids end up not staying because they don't have the help and support to know what to do next.
Which links to my next question, actually, and it's something that I think we've spoken about, but I know Troy Townsend is also part of this podcast. We've definitely spoken a lot about
It's the head of player engagement.
Kick It Out.
Yeah, I know. We've had a podcast with Troy, so he's on our platform.
Okay. Troy's a bad man, and it's one of the few areas where I wouldn't say we disagree, but I slightly challenge this idea. So Troy does a lot of great work in the aftercare of football once they've been released from a club, and we know the stats around, you know, boys in particular, the routes they go down once they get released from clubs. And there's this general notion that football teams should be and need to be doing more to support players that they release, right? Because they see, you know, they take all the good that comes with having a great talent, so you therefore have to support them when you let them go. I challenge that a little bit because the top football teams in particular will let go of hundreds of players every season, I imagine. And I always wonder what is the responsibility of the club once they've let a player go. And I haven't got an answer for it, but I wonder if you do, and if it's part of the work that you do, how much responsibility should be on, let's take our team, Arsenal as an example, should Arsenal have if they let go of 80 players every season? Do they have a responsibility to ensure that those 80 boys and girls have jobs, have education, have a pathway, and if so, for how long? Because I feel there's a little bit too much responsibility and expectation placed upon teams, whereas what you're doing is saying, actually, if I'm getting this right, I think we as parents need to be the ones that lead that aftercare. Is that balance correct?
I suppose it's not necessarily Arsenal as a club; it's any club.
Sorry, I don't want to put this on Arsenal.
Please don't put it on Arsenal.
No. Sorry.
My child's still there.
That's not fair. Sorry, I don't want to get him fired. Arsenal's doing a great club.
You know what? Personally, I'm very much in favour of what you've said. I think there is a responsibility to provide information and resources for the, as much as you can for the onward move. But I do feel that we need to reel it back and empower the families much earlier to learn and educate themselves enough to provide that support. It's a bit like, when you go for a job, you're in a job, you get that go, the organisation, you might have spent 30 years at that job, right? You've been a journalist for 20 odd years, right? When you move on, they're not, they don't have an obligation to you. When I leave a job, they really don't. And also there's a conflict of interest, right? Because you want to put all your resources, people talk about the lack of resources in certain, areas. They don't have the resources sometimes even to have a decent player care department. So I want to know where these resources are coming from, that's going to, give them 5 years of looking after players that have been released. It's not realistic and it's not going to happen. So I do feel that if we could empower the family structures earlier on to take care of our kids in the best way possible, then when it comes to that point of releasing, moving on, we have what it takes to support our kids. It's our responsibility. That might well be a controversial,
No, and to be fair to Troy,
I do think it's. And
I know Troy does do a lot of work working with families as well. So I don't want to mischaracterize Troy's position now. He puts it all on the clubs because he doesn't. But I just think a lot of people do.
I'm going to text Troy now while you're talking.
Troy's been cussing me out.
You know what, Jordan, as well. But we parents are and guardians. It's not just parents. You have guardians. You have your youngsters in care, and all aunts, uncles, grandparents. So all a part of this when we talk about parents. But we are the gatekeepers to our kids entering into this environment. First of all, our kid doesn't spot the scout on the sideline and say, mum or dad or auntie and uncle, is that scout watching me? Can you go and No, we are the ones that decide whether we take that next step on putting our kids into academies, etc. So we are the gatekeepers from the get-go. And then during the process, we have to continue to have that parent role. We have to make the decisions that are right for our kids. Sometimes that might mean no. And I've had to say no to football many times, right? Because at the end of the day...
How easy is that?
How easy is it? For me, it's not easy for everybody. I get that. For me, it was easy. If it was... there were times where Miles had a school match, for example. School football was very important to him. And it was a case of, can he play up on a certain game? Well, actually, no, because tomorrow it's like the final for a school match. It's crucial. You could get injured in respectfully. Yeah. Unfortunately not. And communication, I think, has a lot to do with it as well. It's how you can communicate your feelings and your thoughts and your ideas and why you would make certain decisions as a parent. I think if you can get that communication right, then the environments, the clubs, your coach will respect that. I think communication is a problem in some areas because people don't know how to, and culturally as well. It's understanding different cultures and how to respond to those cultures from clubs as well as from parents. So we as parents are gatekeepers to a lot, and it's our choice whether we support our kids in whatever way this football system is.
Can I ask you about the fact that we come on this podcast here, we talk a lot, we judge, and people watching judge a lot of young men in the game, young black boys in some cases. But I know from speaking to a lot of players, ex-players, agents, even parents, that a lot of these young black boys, they don't have a black mentor for several years within the football ecosystem before they become professionals. What are your views on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a it's not just a football challenge, is it? It's a societal challenge. And look, I can only speak from my perspective in the sense that it clearly it would have an impact, because I know that, for example, that, you know, having spoken to many agents, you know, in the business, they would sell their services as that mentor. And you, I think if you understand the business of football, you perhaps want to think again about that being your mentor. So I would love for our society to reach out to different types of mentor that are not necessarily sports related, right? But not everyone has the brother, the uncle, the dad. You know, our family structure, being very fortunate, not only does my son have a very involved father, but we have what I call the village around us of aunts and uncles and friends of friends. But it's not something that everybody has, but it is important. It is important. But equally, you know, there are many mothers and aunts and grandparents and sisters that can also be incredible role models to our young boys.
I only ask about the football ecosystem because obviously it's a male-dominated industry, and the children, and they are children, spend inordinate amounts of time with these patriarchal figures at a very significant point of their lives, and so they need to be the right role models. And let's not kid ourselves, there are very good role models within the system. We've talked a lot about the pitfalls, but I'm sure there are lots of heartwarming positive stories that have come from the work that you've done so far. Just give us a couple.
There are a lot. I mean, even just sharing the journey, look, I mean, that's the other thing, is there's a lot of negativity around the academy system, and it does provide some wonderful opportunities. And I think without giving that credit, I think would be disservice to them. You know, we've travelled a lot. We've, you know, the team environment, the discipline, the teamwork, the friendships, whether it's, you know, through parents, the kids making friends. There's a lot of good skills and transferable skills, but it's also being able to you know, I guess, interpret those skills for your child and let them know that this is not just about being able to kick a ball. Like, you could go on to some amazing things. So we've had podcasts where there have been catastrophic injuries of young players who have therefore not being able to continue, but they've gone on to great jobs in, you know, in marketing or PR or being in and around football, and also not around football. But that also brings me back to the educational conversation, is that you can go on to have amazing careers in other areas, but you have to have at least the basics. You've got to continue with the basics of education. Just starting at GCSEs will help. We're not saying you've got to all ace it and get all A grades, but that effort that you put into football, you still need to put it into, you know, the basics of your education, so that you can continue into other areas should you need to do that.
Now, you might not have a view on this, and that would be fine. But there are loads of people, every time I go to places and we talk about young players or even older players in football, they ask me about the money in football. And they say to me, how much is too much when players are children, when they're 16, 17, 18? What's your view on finance in football? And I've phrased that very carefully, because I don't want to presume that you have an opinion one way or the other.
Yeah. Do you know what? I think the industry, again, because I've had dealings with, you know, the finance end of the football as well, is that there's a lot of, mistruths about the finance in football as well. Yes, if you're a top player, the riches will be there. They'll be dangling all sorts of things, right? And they make it sound like, you know, it's something that you need now. And I would urge people to really think about the sport in a longer term. Like, if you're at the top of your game, at some point you will get what's deserved to you, rather than seeing it as a short-term gain. I do think football has a responsibility to kind of keep an eye on the money side of football. Having said that, the money comes from the broadcasters. You know, that's where does the money go, right? It can either stop at the high level of the club, or it can get filtered down. And I personally feel there is too much money for a younger age. I think things can be capped so that that burning desire could stay within the young people. But it is a business. It's a business, and everyone's trying to get something out of it. It worries me.
I mean, no
actually.
names,
It
but
worries
have you
me.
come across people who they say, look, this is the advice I want. I've been offered this contract by X or Y club, and they tell you the financial details of the contract, and you think, oh my gosh, Miles isn't getting this none of it.
Look,
How many zeros?
our business is not to advise. That's not up to us
Okay.
at all. And I would stay well clear of that. It's up to the family to decide what they need to do.
Sure.
I think everyone will have their price. You know, even when you think about things like boot deals, you'll always get the families that want to sign on the dotted line at under sevens, and you'll get those that actually see maybe that's not the right thing to do, maybe wait. So everyone has their opinion, and you have to work out what's right for you. So I would never personally advise on that thing. And everyone's situation is very different. You know, there are some people that would take that money because they can't afford their rent. They need it, right? And who am I to judge that's right or wrong?
And that's why I wanted to kind of really be real about this conversation, because it's easy to ask you kind of sanitized questions, but I think there is a reality about navigating what is a shark-infested water in football. And there are many dilemmas that humble parents like us, you know, are faced with within football. And they don't know how to get past them. And I think, as you say, it's not necessarily about you giving them advice, but you sharing your experience, other parents sharing their experience.
That's absolutely. I think when you start to hear the stories of others, things will resonate, and you think, actually, that sounds like my story, or that's a really interesting way that family approached that. It just opens up, you know, just more ideas and more thoughts for you to decide what's right for you.
We are listening to Marcia Lewis. She is the woman behind No1 Fan app. You can find it
at No1Fan.club. And we've had an app for 9 months. We're transitioning to a new platform, so in the next couple of weeks it'll be out there. But if you go onto the website, you can, you know, subscribe, and we'll keep you updated.
I have one more question, but Jordan's going to go first.
No, yours is about the app. So
No, go ahead.
well, I was going to ask, marginally less important, is it coming home?
Yeah, of course.
Let's get the real. Come on, this weekend's it happening?
I think we're going to do it.
Is there a parade on Islington High Street
There is a
on
parade,
Monday morning?
and we are going to be in it.
That's what I wanted.
I actually thought he was going to ask you a serious question.
No, that was your first mistake, Darren. Sorry.
Let's just wrap up with this one, because I want you to talk about the wider football industry. How can the wider football industry support you? What can parents maybe expect from the platform when we relaunch, because you are going to relaunch early in June?
Yes,
is that right?
That's right, yeah.
What can parents expect?
Well, from the platform, again, stories, experiences, experts, access to workshops, you know, learning and educating and keeping informed is very important. So we have a wealth of workshops that are designed by parents, for parents, by experienced parents, actually, not just in the football journey, but in their own careers. Events, access to events. We recently had an amazing event called Industry Insights for Parents. It was a physical event. You could turn up. We had Jeff Shreves was our host.
I was going to say, you had great guests,
Yeah, we had great guests. We
Who else was
networked
there?
at the end. We had Chris Ramsey, Daniel G, who's one of the top sports lawyers, Misha Sher, branding, Misha Taylor, Shidem Turkin, who's from the Premier League, Akram Solomon, who was a scout. So we had a wealth and breadth of industry professionals, really giving some amazing insights. But also you had the audience interacting and asking questions, and it was a great event. So we'll be having more of that on the platform, and it's going to be a really exciting space. And just the industry can help us by actually, just whether it's support with resource, whether it's funding, like this is a 360 approach. It's not about us, you know, smashing the industry or being negative. It's a really positive platform. But we feel that if you really have the family and the players' best interests at heart, you'll get on board and you'll support us. And I don't think the industry necessarily is kind of opening up enough, to be fair. I think some of our institutions, our regulators, really should see this as a positive way that we're protecting the family unit, and from a social responsibility perspective, they should be doing more to support our platform.
Well, you will always have the support of the Whisper It Loudly podcast. I think that goes without saying, and all of our viewers who are watching and have listened to you make so much sense about an area that doesn't get discussed enough. Will you promise to come back when Miles becomes famous and he goes into the first team? And he makes...
You don't go bougie on us. Like, oh, I'm sorry, the phone's ringing and no one's answering anymore now. You called up for the England squad.
Will he come back?
Of course. Like,
It'd be a real
God
pleasure.
willing, he'll reach the where he wants to go in the industry.
Yeah, best of luck to him as well, because it's about him, isn't it? So,
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
Thank you
all
very
of-
much, and thank you again for having me. I really
Honestly, it's been
appreciate
a
it.
real absolute pleasure. Marcia Lewis, thank you very much indeed for joining us. We've got to close the show.
You do.
You've been good company.
I try my best.
I think you know we're the best ones.
Well, we are the best ones. We're the most consistent ones. I know that. Well, to be fair, even you had a few weeks off, so yeah,
Ooh, don't
I'm the
remember that.
consistent one. You're all right.
Listen, thanks for joining me today.
Anytime.
Jordan Jarrett
Where can
Bryan.
they find
Thank
us?
you to. Oh yes, of course. You can find us on TikTok. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on YouTube as well. We'll put the clips up as the week goes on. If you want to get in touch, you've got a view. Stick them in the comments. If you've got an opinion on what we should be talking about on this show, let us know as well. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. We'll see you next week.
Come on.